All right, welcome back. We are INFR2350 in the winter 2020 semester, and it is week 5, uh, part 1 of our broadcast, probably the one part that you're going to focus on, which is all around the midterm exam details, which is what we want to talk about today. We're sitting at this spot right here, which is the week of February 10th. And as you see, there is no formal no formal lecture today. I'm just going to talk about the details. And I also want to talk about the weeks ahead, what this is going to look like over the next couple weeks, and so that everyone's on board with all the stuff that we're doing. I think these are kind of important things to talk about before you guys depart for your break next week, and before you see Nicholas on Friday. So let's talk a little bit high level. So again, this week's activities, the TA will be available to assist you during your regular tutorial period. I was speaking to him today. He thinks that when I showed him the exam, he's very comfortable with it. I think there's no issues with it. Again, midterm exam is going to be due Sunday at midnight. It's geared for about 2 hours to complete. Again, you get a total of about 5 days to do it. I think that's fairly reasonable. One thing to note about next week is there's no class. Again, just a reminder, there's reading week. On Monday, of course, it's family day. When we come back, week 6, we'll be doing checkpoint number 2. So please be prepared with your team to make sure that you're ready for checkpoint 2. We'll have a bit of an order there, and we'll have more time on week 6 to do checkpoint 2 than we did the last time, because now you should have your checkpoint requirements. You should know what is required. It'll be the same format as we went through the last time. The expectations for every team, including the non-GDW teams that are out there right now, will be that you want to show me a demo at this point. So that's the one thing that I didn't really ask for in checkpoint 1. Many of you provided it. Some of you didn't. And what I'm going to ask for you guys is to show us live what that looks like. Again, there's 4 of these checkpoints all told, and this is number 2. They're all worth 1.5% of your final grade. So please be prepared to come ready to discuss it. Focus yourself on just the stuff that I need, and then ready to go from there. If we fulfill basic lighting base requirements for future reference. Yes, you'll be getting that back soon, Adam. And then week 7, just the week after week 6, that's when your assignment 3 is going to be due, which is your deferred rendering and post-processing assignment, which is part 1 of a larger assignment. And part 2, which is assignment 4, is going to be putting together additional post-processing effects with your G-buffer, volumetric lighting, and all those kind of things that are going to come up in the last assignment. Okay, so those are the things that are upcoming, just to look ahead in terms of where we are right now. But I'm sure you don't care about those things right now as much as you care about the midterm details. So let's get into that now, as most of you are here. All right, let's take a look. So again, this document should be shared now and available to you to look at up online. So again, it's going to evaluate your basic knowledge of shaders, lighting, texturing, and post-processing effects. That's what I'm asking for this one. The post-processing effects is only one real effect we're going to go through. We'll talk about it. You'll begin with starter code provided from tutorial 4, so you're allowed to use Otter. Again, just like before, so it's not like you're going to start from scratch. I wouldn't do that to you. As an example, the midterm exam is individual, and it'll be worth 10% of your final grade. So it's not a huge amount of marks, but I think it's pretty good in terms of, are you allowed to use GW? And just give me a second, Amen, I'll talk about that. So the first part is you want to create a new scene with multiple objects, like we said before. Note, it says, please ensure that objects in your scene have textures applied. We'll talk about this. And also that your scene should not include objects from previous assignments. So what I want you guys to do is make up a new scene. So that should answer your question. So I don't want you to use something. It's individual for you. It's something that you can kind of put together. I don't want it to be a complex scene or anything like that. Unless, look at later, unless you want to make it complex to get extra marks. And we'll talk about that in a second. I want you to make a camera again, just like before. Characters should be dynamic in some way, moving around. Same thing as before, aesthetically pleasing. That is your base that you have to put together. It's, again, this is to demonstrate your requirements, okay? Basic lighting is the same as in assignment 1 and 2, so nothing that's too crazy there that are applied to your objects in the scene. The new stuff, textures. Expectations are that you should use textures effectively, and that means UV mapping and shaders. Texture sampling is required, and your texturing cannot be straightforward, boring, stretched, low-resolution textures, just like it says in your GDW requirements in that document. And then also, please provide references for your textures, and you can do that in the video. When you talk about in the video, this is where I got my stuff from. If you made your textures on your own, if you use Substance to make your textures or something like that, you can also do that. Texturing must be able to be toggled on or off. So that might be something new that you haven't had a requirement to do before. So this is a new thing. It's worth 10 points out of 100. The one thing that's new for you guys is the bloom shader. And you guys haven't had a chance to do bloom yet, for the most part, most of you anyway. So what you're going to do is you're going to implement bloom with a number of passes. So there's going to be almost like a compositing that you're going to be doing. So the first pass is the bright pass, where what you're going to do is you're going to extract all the bright colors of your scene based on some kind of threshold. And that threshold is going to be some kind of values that you're going to decide what those are. Okay. And again, you can, one of the expectations is that Nicholas is going to help you, help guide you on where to look for resources and those kind of things for this, but you can also research on your own. There's plenty of resources if you just Google, as an example, how to do bloom or bloom shader process. If you just do those in, you'll see some examples with code on how to implement bloom. And but the trick is, how do you do it with Otter? That's the thing that you have to figure out. Your blur pass, your 2 passes. So there's a blur pass and there's a bright pass and then a blur pass. And the blur pass, I'm allowing you to use either Gaussian blur or Gaussian blur or box blur. So either one you can use. You can have one or more blur passes, and the more blur passes you add on in your effect, it'll create a different kind of bloom effect. It'll create a different glow depending on how many passes you do. And so a box blur would be something like a horizontal blur pass and a vertical blur pass, almost like an extra couple passes just to do your box blur, if you're going to do it that way. Compositing, you'll be taking whatever you get from your bright pass and your blurred bright pass, because that's what you're going to get at the end, because you're going to combine these two things. And your composite, you're going to composite it with your original scene to get your final effect. So that's how blur would work. Bloom, I mean, would work. And then what you're going to do is, I want some key sequences here. So one of them is a key sequence or a slider control that allows the user to change the brightness threshold. Because basically what you're going to do is to extract all the bright colors from your scene, you need to select the threshold, some value in terms of brightness or luminance, if you will, right? So that is something that you're going to have to figure out, how to have a slider control so I can adjust my bloom, and as well as some kind of key sequence or slider control in IMGUI, as an example, that enables the user to change the blur values. So again, there's going to be some kind of blur values that you're going to get when you create this 2D effect. And the typical way that it looks like, if I was going to draw it out, would be, here's your original scene, and then you have your bright pass, which kind of, you take your original texture, you pass it through your bright pass, you pass your bright pass into your blur. So now you have your blurred bright pass. And then from there, you're going to blend it again in with your original texture to have the final effect, which is your bloom. Okay, so that's how it works. Okay, in terms of your debug keys, same kind of debug keys, no lighting, ambient lighting, specular lighting, but the number 5 is ambient, specular, and bloom, where you add bloom in and turn it off and on. And then number 6 would be toggle textures on and off. So you can toggle textures. Textures should be included with all this stuff, and then you should be able to toggle it on and off for all the effects. And then a couple of key sequences, like I said earlier, or some kind of slider controls, what might be better, where you can, kind of add a slider control to change the brightness threshold or the blur values. And then the video is the same. What I've been asking you, just explain your video, show me your code, show your, what the, how everything works, and that you've been able to implement what I've asked. And then at the end, here's your bonus opportunities. And this is something that I kind of add in for you guys when you do your midterms. So it's worth 10% of your final grade, 10% of the 10%. So 1% bonus is what this works out to be. For 1% bonus, I'm going to give you a chance to add different things. For the AI programmer's bonus, create a procedurally generated scene instead of deliberate placement of 3D meshes and primitives. Demonstrate this effect through using a generate key sequence. So maybe you have a key to press, an R key, or maybe you're going to have something on IMGUI, and then describe how you did it. So basically, you're going to procedurally generate your scene. It's going to have some kind of effect. It could be a maze. It could be some kind of other structures that you put together, maybe with some kind of noise, some kind of noise effect, a noise algorithm like any kind of noise algorithm that you want to use that gives you some randomization in your scene. So that's your AI programmer's bonus. If you pull it off and it looks neat and it's playable, it's something that you can zoom around your camera and all that kind of stuff, and it makes sense, and you can apply your textures and everything else. It's quite difficult to do procedurally generated scenes and adding all your effects in there at the same time. So this is interesting. This is for interest only. You don't have to do this, okay? Again, this is only bonus. If you don't do it, you're not going to lose marks. You're just not going to gain marks. That's your AI programmer's bonus. All right, how about your sound specialist bonus? We can't leave out, people who love sound. Create dynamic and or spatial sound and music that changes as your camera approaches various objects in the scene. You may include Fmod and or create your own sound manager if you want to. So people who are interested in doing sound, this is an opportunity for you to add that into your midterm. How about the technical artist? Someone who wants to make their own unique assets. And just like earlier, if you want to add some unique assets to make your scene look awesome, that's great. Make sure you animate them similar to one of your objects using techniques that you learned from your animation algorithms course. So blend shapes, those kind of things is something you may want to use here to see if you can animate your objects. So that's your technical artist bonus. And then your graphics programmer's bonus. If you're someone who loves CG, then add another shader effect of your choice. It could be a toon shader. It could be something else that makes sense for your game. Make sure you can toggle this on and off combined with Bloom, right? So that way Bloom and this effect that you're going to add in works together. And then describe your effect in the demo video. And then finally, the producer's bonus. So if you're going to track your progress with your midterm using some kind of some favorite version of your agile project management tool, examples of that would be Trello or Jira. Jira is recommended if you want to really push your resume to another level when it comes to how it looks. Jira is the de facto standard that we use in the industry. Do the bonuses stack? No, they don't. So you have to choose one. Because remember, this is all supposed to be able to be completed within 2 hours. I know, Alan. I want to make the bonuses stack, but then the bonuses could overtake the entire thing, right? Are they role-locked options? Could the producer do the tech art option? Yes, you could. I'm not going to make it so that you have to be the producer to do the producer's option. Anyone can do any of these bonuses, but you have to choose one. Okay, that's the rule. And then the rest is the same. Submit your GitHub link and your 5-minute video link, and that's it. That is your midterm test. I think it's fairly straightforward to produce. And then again, you're going to be ranked on your base 20 marks, basic lighting 20 marks, texturing 10 marks, Bloom 30, debug features 10, demo video 10, and your bonus is 10 marks. All right, so it's a good chance that you guys can do really well on this. I added the bonus in, and I like to add the bonus in for midterm and final exams. You'll see a bonus like this, similar to this, for your final exam, because it kind of makes up for maybe something you missed. You missed handing in, as an example, your one of your tutorials, one of your labs, your in-class lab exercise, your ILE, or you missed handing in, an in-class exercise for me, as an example, or you didn't do quite as well as you would like to in one of your other assignments. So this extra bonus, if you want to work a little harder, you can get an extra 1% of your final grade, which I think is good. I think it's an opportunity for you guys. All right, so now I'll take questions. Any questions related to what I want you guys to do for your midterm test? Again, this is something that is going to be due on Sunday. So you have all day, over the next, days to do it. Things that I will stipulate in terms of what I'm asking Nick to do Nick is not going to give you the answers. Okay, so and I know that you don't expect him to, but I'm saying that in terms of, what is Nick going to do for you? He's going to point you in the right direction tomorrow. He's going to help you. So let's go back to Aim's question here. So, okay, again, are we allowed to use our existing GW assignment 2 code instead of Nick's otter copy as a base? Yeah, I think so. I think the code is okay as long as you use your, if that's going to help you to get going, I'm okay with it. Like, to me, it always works out to be, it's always better if you can pull off the things that I've asked with code that you've made yourself or that you've worked on, right? So, you can use your game engine. Yeah, you can. If you really want to, you can do it. If you want to use your starter code, if you don't have a game engine, or if you're not comfortable using your own game engine on your own, and if you're used to using the tutorial engine, I'm fine with that too. And yeah, that's why I'm giving you. So really, if you think about this, your 20 points, this 20 points here is really free, right? For the most part, it's really your base. And even this 20 points is really free, right? Because if you have these two pieces in place, then you're good to go. The only thing that I want you guys to change up is your objects in the game, and then make sure you have full texturing and all that kind of stuff. And then the bloom part is where the challenge is going to be. So I don't think, you're going to have a lot of crazy work on this one. It's not meant to be crazy, guys. Remember, in the real world, kind of stuff. If we were all together in class, I would just say, okay, guys, pull up your engine, whatever engine you want to use, and let's make sure you have lighting and texturing. Here's some points for that stuff. And I could have made your basic lighting and texturing in your base scene lower marks, but what I really wanted to do is I don't want to make this assignment a chore. I don't want to make this assignment something that you dread. I want to make this assignment something that you can learn from. And that's why I said, hey, let's give you 50% for the things that you probably already have. So if you just do this part, you passed. Don't worry about passing. That's not what I'm worried about here. What I'm worried about here is do some research. Let's see what you can do with Bloom. Okay, I want to see how good your Bloom is and all that kind of stuff. I want to see how you can do with your debug toggle keys. Let's add that in. And then let's do that bonus so that you can get that extra bonus to bump up your mark a little bit if you need it. Here's something that I've got a question. If multiple group members use their GW game, are we expected to still change everything around for the scene? Yes, please. So what I'm asking for is you can use your engine, but it has to be your own scene. All right. And I know that's a bit of a pain, but hey, you're getting everything free anyway, right? So I think that's not a lot to ask for you. And what I mean is everyone's scene has to look different. Please don't say, hey, so what are you putting in your scene? I think it's okay to use the same ground plane or something like that, or even a terrain if you're using some kind of, voxel-based terrain. But please don't make it so that it's the exact same, okay? Here's something else. Can we use asset we already have created for the game or no? If it's been implemented already in one of the other things in your assignment 2, then the answer is no. If it's something that you haven't implemented in assignment 2, and if I haven't seen it, then it's okay. And please make sure that your other team members coordinate with them so you don't all use the same assets that have been created in the game, all right? Now, if you're going to use assets that have been created in the game and you want to get the technical bonus, then if it's already in the game, then the answer is no. You have to create another asset for you to get the technical bonus, all right? Drayton says, can we look online for new assets? Absolutely you can if you want to get new assets, but you won't get the technical bonus for that one. You'll just be getting new assets for the scene. And I'm okay with you getting assets for the scene, but for you to get the technical artist bonus, you need to make your own. You can cite them, I assume? Absolutely. That's what I'm looking for. You can cite any asset. You don't have to make your own assets. You can get any asset from anywhere to make your scene look good. Right. So to me, just make it interesting. And again, don't think about this part. Think about it, guys. You don't have to worry about really hard about this part. For the most part, you have this code. All this stuff here you got. The only thing I'm worried about is, hey, show me Bloom and get that bonus, because you got time to get that bonus. You get time to pick one of those things so that all of you know what I want? This would be perfect for me. If all of you got 110%, I would love that. And that's going to be great for you guys because that's going to show interest. And it's going to be great for your GDW games because, guys, everything that I've asked you to do here in this midterm is going to go towards your GDW, requirements at the end. Bloom is required, and so is texturing. So if you do it here in your midterm, then it's just going to pay for it. It's going to pay for itself, if you will, by the time you need to get it done, and it's going to get you to understand how the process works. A great thing about this as well, which I think, is that you can compare your Bloom implementation to other people in your team, and you can use the best Bloom implementation or tweak it for your final GDW game. So I think it's a great opportunity for you guys. And I'm not saying that Bloom is the be all and end all, but it's something that's required, and you might as well do as best as you can with it. Any other questions around the midterm? And again, if you do have anything else and I haven't covered it, or if you think about something else later on today or tomorrow or Friday, again, Friday, Nick's going to be around just to help you with syntax. If you need to implement something in your engine or Otter and you don't know how to do it, one of the challenges I think that people new to CG have is the question, where do I start? How do I start that? How do I add a bright pass? How do I do that? How do I add a blur pass? Where do I put that in? How do I composite everything? How do I do that kind of stuff? What is the process for me to add my structures in my code to get this done? So that's what Nick can help you with. He can say, okay, put it here. This is how you would start, that kind of stuff. Because I've told you what to do. These are the steps. Bright pass, blur pass, compositing step. That's it. Those are the steps. Now it's your job to go through and figure out how to do it. Okay. So that is that. Let's go back to this. So that's really what we're talking about this week. So again, remember that it's due Sunday at midnight. I think you got plenty of time to get it done. If for whatever reason you're running into trouble, I highly recommend, because it's a midterm test, there are no extensions beyond Sunday. So please don't wait till Sunday at 11, after, like 11:50 or something to start submitting. That would be a bad decision. Please don't do that. Instead of doing that, what I'd recommend that you do is submit early and submit often if you can, right? It's okay to make multiple submissions. You can submit and submit and submit. Keep track of your GitHub repository. So worst case scenario, you can revert if there's anything that goes wrong. And this is going to set you up. What I'm asking for the midterm, and the way we're doing the midterm, is pretty much the way we're going to do our final exam. The final exam obviously is going to be more complex, and there's going to be a written component to it. But more or less, you're going to get everything that you have here for the most part in your final exam. It will be more difficult than this because you're going to have more requirement. But again, it shouldn't take you more than the practical piece, 2 hours, and the written piece, an hour. So for a total of 3 hours take home, which would be the utmost top amount of time that you would need. Okay. Here's the question Andrew has. Is Nick going to post a new starter, or should we use week 4 starter if we don't want to use GDW1? Yeah, you can use the one that I mentioned here. So if you really want to, you can just use this one right here, which is the tutorial 4 starter. So he's not going to post a new one. You can use this one. Okay. So that's something you can start off if you want. If you don't want to use the GDW one, you can just use the one that are listed here in the document. Anyone else have any questions at all? Again, I'm live. I'm recording this, so that way, worst case scenario, you can go through again and kind of look and see, what did Tom say about this part? Well, that's what I said, right? So then you can look through the YouTube video. That's why the YouTube video is being created right now. But however, you're probably going to think about a problem. You're probably going to think about something that you need. So again, hit me up with that. You can DM me directly, or you can go through Nick. No, Christian. So Christian's asking, on the topic of textures, but creating something in Photoshop be considered too straightforward? No, I don't think so. What I mean by straightforward is, as in, if it's just a bland texture, like you've applied, like there's no texturing to it. I mean, literally, it's just a band that you put around the object. So it's completely boring, and it can take you 1 second to do. That would be something that is not that, that doesn't make sense. But if you're going to add a texture that has, almost like a different look and feel to it, as an example, that's what I'm looking for. It should match really the idea that you have for your scene, and all the textures should kind of work together. So if you acquire textures from different places and they all look mismatched, I mean, there's got to be a reason for why you're getting these things and why you're putting them on. But really the exercise is make sure they're not skewed, make sure they're applied properly with proper UVs, all that kind of stuff. You can do a lot of this work in Blender if you know how, by prepping, right? So you can do a lot of the prep work in Blender, and when you output stuff from Blender to your object, it can have all the information it has from a UV perspective and your OBJ files to your to everything else you want, right? So Blender has a lot of stuff. So try and make it simple. So let's pull up Blender for a second. Not Minecraft, Blender. I'll be okay. I did that last time too. Minecraft launcher. No, it's Blender. So if you pull up Blender as an example, and and let's suppose you're into the UV editing, and if I have some kind of texture, that I'm using. So let's say, for example, I'm inside of a material for Blender. Let's say I want to put together something in Blender, and I want to add in on my material side, on the base color, I'm going to add to test it. I would test it probably in something like Blender to see what it looks like. This is me if I was making it. And then what I would do is maybe open something, as an example that let's take a look at a texture that I might have that I was doing a demo earlier this week. So let's look at a texture that I have here. So here's my base texture, and I want to add a texture to this that I can select, right? So let's select that texture that I have. So there's a brick wall kind of texture that you can use. And I want to show this brick wall. It's by default, it's unwrapped here in Blender, right? As an example, this is okay. This is not a simple texture. This is something where it's a tileable texture that you've applied. And if I want to add additional features, and again, this is something that if your code supports, let's say, a normal map, right, then you could certainly add things like normal mapping and that kind of stuff if you're interested. So let's say I want to add a normal map and I want to load an image texture for the normal map, then you can certainly go ahead and add that in as well. It's really up to you how you want to make this look and feel, but obviously you don't want to get something that's really, really super simple. Otherwise, it's going to be boring for me to look at, boring for Nick to look at. If it's skewed, that's bad. Like let's say, for example, now if I didn't UV unwrap this properly and then the texture looks skewed, I mean, that's really on you, right? So if I was to do something like, I don't know, I was to expand this thing, and let's say, for example, I want to expand it across only the Z-axis. So then now you have this really weird stretching happening, because when I did my UV editing, what's happening is, and let's just look at the texture for a second. In my UV editing, notice that each of the islands that I have here that I'm selecting, so let's say, for example, I'm selecting this face. This face should be, kind of proportional to what I'm doing here. So when we're talking about texturing, this should be unwrapped again in a different way. And then that information should go into your OBJ file. So when you load it into, your code, it looks proportional, is what I'm saying. So please try and focus on those things. Otherwise, you'll get a weird stretching that looks like this, which is wrong. Should you have a graphics Minecraft server? I should have a graphics Minecraft server. I know, it's really good. One day we'll do that. It'll be fun to do, and it's not difficult to set up, actually, so we can do it live. Any other questions around texturing? I know this isn't a Blender class; it's not Gavin's class for graphics, but I think it's pretty straightforward to do something like this and bring it in. I mean, again, I wouldn't want to use kind of the values that I have here for my normal. I think the strength for my normal map is too much. I probably would be a little bit more subtle with the values. Maybe 0.5 to 0.7 might be okay. And if you wanted to use something like again, roughness values and those kind of things to make it better, I'd probably do that and bring the specular right down for this object, because it's a brick. It's probably not going to be very shiny, right? So that kind of stuff. All right, so let's back to being back on track. So that's when it's due. Hopefully I answered most of your questions now. Anybody have any other questions related to the midterm test? All right, I'm going to stop streaming now on YouTube, and then I'll take any questions that people are afraid to ask on YouTube, and I'll stick around for anything right now. Let's do that. So for the people who are on YouTube, thank you so much. See you when you come back from break. from the people here that are live with me, I'll take questions in a second. Did you say we can